And that brings me to the next person on the deep dive list, and that, of course, is Josh Hammer. Now, I had covered what had happened with Charlie Kirk regarding the Zionists and how they felt about him bringing Dave Smith to the final rendition of the Turning Point USA conference. And when he was on stage, he debated Josh Hammer. And here's a snippet of what Josh Hammer had to say during that debate.
While no one should be afraid of debate, and this debate is a nice thing here, the MAGA movement is actually quite unified. Believe it or not, all the talk to the contrary when it comes to these issues. An overwhelming majority of self-identified MAGA Republicans supports close U.S.-Israel relations.
Now, we all know that's bullshit. And keep in mind, this is a statement that was made by Josh Hammer before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So, already putting out the smoke signal of MAGA supports Israel. No, he doesn't. Or no, they don't. I know you do, Josh Hammer. But in this case, he's using the Turning Point USA platform to discuss why we should not. Sure, Josh Scammer, that's a good one. This is an elitist if there ever was, and he's got a lot more to say. But again, right out of the box, he's letting you know that everything is fine with the U.S. and Israel. Even though we're almost, or at this point, we were almost 2 years in to a genocide, of which, of course, he denies. This is a key to unlocking the real problem here. More to go.
According to a CBS News poll, moreover, after the recent Operation Midnight Hammer B-2 bombers in Iran, 94% of self-identified MAGA Republicans supported President Trump's dropping those B-2 bombs on Fordo, Natanz, and the other Iranian facilities there. This is a wildly popular policy there. What did Dave Smith say about this? He re-upped his now years-long crusade to call for Donald Trump's impeachment. Y'all probably don't know that about Dave Smith, do you? He's now called for Donald Trump to be impeached multiple times. But
I would say that Trump, after what he just said at the Knesset the other day, would be grounds for impeachment because he admitted that he is under the thumb of a foreign government. You know, they tried so hard for so long to prove that Trump was a Russian asset or a tool of Putin, blah, 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 blah. But all the while, we all knew that there was only one country that had his, command. And that, of course, was Israel, the country that he's espousing all the support in the world for. Bullshit. And I like Dave Smith, by the way.
Dave, look, I don't like when people misquote me either. You probably don't like when people misquote you. So I actually have a little bit of a highlight reel here of Dave Smith's tweets over the years. Dave Smith, March 19th, 2024. Donald Trump is responsible for around 500,000 deaths in Yemen, and between the weapons to Ukraine and the Abraham Accords Jerusalem embassy, he is at least partially responsible for the two worst humanitarian crises in the world. He's a war criminal who should spend his life in prison.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, that seems very reasonable. And you can say that about every president in the United States since JFK. So what's the problem? Do you want to hear this terrible thing he said about our dear leader?
He is calling Donald Trump a war criminal who should spend his life in prison. You should be livid at that. I am livid at that as a Trump supporter. Donald Trump, Dave Smith, June 16, 2025. Trump allegedly had full prior knowledge of Israel's attacks and gave it his blessing while pretending to be negotiating with the Iranians as a cover. If this is true, Trump is the most impotent bitch of a leader imaginable. He's calling our president, the greatest president in my lifetime, an impotent bitch. Are you kidding me? June 20.
I'm so offended. The only bitch I see is the bitch with the piece of paper speaking right now. My God, are you a bitch?
21st, 2025, Donald Trump has now launched an illegal war of aggression against Iran. The risk of an absolute catastrophe is very high and the benefits are non-existent. Dave Smith, June 21st. Dead wrong. This notion that World War III would start, not a single American casualty. We should be celebrating that. Donald Trump fulfilled multiple campaign promises. The escalator speech in 2015 at Trump Tower, he literally said, I'm not going to let Iran get a nuclear weapon. And guess what? He said, I oppose a neoconservative foreign policy. He did both of those things with Iran. He deprived the Iranian regime of nuclear weapon while not losing a single American sailor, soldier, or Marine while depriving them of nuclear weapons. And finally, on this. Dave Smith, July 8th, 2025. In the last month, Donald Trump has launched a war of aggression on behalf of a foreign government, exploded the debt, announced that he's continuing the Biden policy of arming Ukraine, and covered up a giant child rape operation. So according to my interlocutor, Donald Trump is not just engaging in wars on behalf of a foreign government, he is also covering up the world's giant pedophilic child sex trafficking ring, allegedly, I presume, on behalf of a foreign government as well. So I'm just...
Well, yes, I would say that is 100% correct. They are covering up a child sex trafficking ring led by Jeffrey Epstein. And you know that, Josh Hammer, and you're covering up for that. I mean, I don't want to make any presumptions about what you may or may not have known or were doing with Jeffrey Epstein. But anybody who wants to sit on stage and defend Jeffrey Epstein, not the best look. We must release the Epstein files, but as long as somebody like Josh Hammer is involved in this process, that is not going to happen. Now, I don't know how many of you know who Josh Hammer is. He is an attorney by trade. He's a political commentator. He's also a columnist. He grew up in Westchester County, New York, in a very affluent upbringing that saw him go to Duke and to the University of Chicago Law School. He is an example of what we talk about when we say that there is a difference between regular Jews and elite Jews. And he is one of those elite Jews that is in favor of the disintegration of this country if it is at the behest of Israel. Now, this is the statement that he made sitting on stage across from Dave Smith, and this man's leg right here is Charlie Kirk's. So this is what he said shortly before Charlie's assassination. This is what Josh Hammer had to say just a couple of days ago regarding not only his relationship with Charlie Kirk, but Charlie Kirk's position on the state of Israel. Now it gets even more interesting.
Really only over the past, I don't know, year and a half or so that I would say that we became closer. I started going on his show, The Charlie Kirk Show, a wildly popular podcast and radio show. I started going on the show more often, and we started talking very frequently. He formed a small group chat. There were probably 7 or 8 of us total in this group chat there. He called it his brain trust for thinking about Israel, for thinking about Jewish-Christian relations. He was very concerned about rising anti-Semitism. This is something that he was an adamant opponent of. It is Charlie, if you look at campus talks for the past couple of years, he wasn't just getting asked about Israel. He was not just getting asked about two-state solution, about Gaza, borders, all this stuff there. No, he was getting asked about like the Talmud, which is crazy. And he actually was able to provide very good answers, better answers than probably 98% of Jews probably could offer there. So we talked a little bit about that sort of stuff, frankly. But above all, we really strategized about how to turn back the tide against rising anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment on the American right in Republican Party circles among young Gen Z conservative activists there. And it got to the point where these campus talks that Charlie was doing, give or take, these are his words, not mine, he would say that roughly half, 50% of the questions that he got asked were all on Israel, Jews, which first of all is disturbing. It's mind-boggling.
I don't know who this lady is, but Why is it disturbing? What are you, living under a rock? Listen, it's one thing to just support the state of Israel unconditionally. It's another thing entirely to pretend that this is not the most critical issue facing this country in this moment. That is reflective in what conservative politicos want to talk about. So you can't just frame it as, oh, it's a bunch of hippie lefties who are anti-war and that's the reason they care about it. No, it runs a hell of a lot deeper than that. And so to pretend to play dumb only makes you look more guilty. So that should come as no surprise.
Boggling, it's frankly disturbing. That is not a sign of a healthy society. So that's sobering in and of itself. But because of that, he did organize this Zoom call the night before he tragically was murdered. So the Utah Valley University event where he tragically was killed, just a day that will live in infamy, to borrow the FDR phrase from many decades ago. So that was supposed to be the first of a series of events. Supposed to be the first launching a campus tour. So basically, before he set foot at the first event, he wanted kind of an hour-long kind of prep call. So it was me, a right-wing rabbi friend of mine who lives in Jerusalem, Pesach Wilicki, a couple of his producers, and there was one Christian pastor. And that was basically it. And Charlie had a list of questions. You know, how do I respond when the students ask me about starvation, famine, genocide, borders, two-state solution, this, that, there. But the mere fact that he was seeking our counsel, and we communicated on a virtually daily basis through.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he never seeked out your counsel, especially you. You are an empty vessel if there ever was one. You're actually a knockoff Ben Shapiro. I finally got it. That's all you are. I don't for a second believe that this guy in any, I mean, I do believe that there were members of the Zionist brigade that had Charlie's ear, and probably in a very big way for a long time, but I think it went a lot higher than Josh Hammer. But to use the term seeking counsel, that is boosting yourself up a lot. But he's got a little more to say.
Through this active group chat and one-on-one. The fact that we were doing that, along the fact that he had that particular Zoom call with people like me the night before he was killed, I think really profoundly calls into question this narrative that he was getting ready to renounce his well-established lifelong support for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel.
Now, of course, he makes this statement about whether or not Charlie Kirk had stepped away. And he's making this statement after Candace Owens revealed the group chat exchange with Josh Hammer, Bill Ackman, Andrew Colvett, the guy who's the head of Seth Dillon. So why is he saying this? Why does he feel the need to go and make this statement when it's obvious that he is not going to be able to hide it? It's already out there. He was a part of this group. And Candace has the receipts that shows that Charlie didn't want anything to do with these guys anymore. He had had enough. So why would Hammer feel the need to say this? We're going to conclude this with Candace Owens, who, keep in mind, I don't know what's happened to her. I haven't seen anything from her in several days. I would be concerned. She did say, if anything happens to me, you know who to blame. Well, we sure do.
For weeks after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Josh Hammer obsessively and shamelessly accused people of lying, people of grifting, people of attempting to destroy Charlie Kirk's legacy. Charlie Kirk was his friend, he claimed rather maniacally. That Charlie never once flinched on the topic of Israel. He died just loving Israel. It was like, are you kidding me? That's all he cared about. Check out just some of these tweets, by the way. This is a collage. We just don't have all day here to gather crazy Josh Hammer tweets, but you get the idea. There is a repulsive op right now to hijack Charlie Kirk's legacy. There is a repulsive op right now desecrating Charlie's memory by trying to posthumously convert him to Groyperism. Can't believe there's something known as Groyperism. I was given access to this letter a few months ago, and I read it at that.
I just have to pause this here because if there's one thing that I know, and I am not a big follower of all these content creators and what they say on a daily basis, but if there's one thing that I think anybody is aware of when it comes to conservative ink, if you want to call it that, Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes did not like each other even a little bit. So the idea that Josh Hammer is accusing Charlie Kirk, or in this case, the suggestion of Candace Owens, that all of a sudden that Charlie was becoming a groyper. I don't know where the hell he pulls that shit out of his ass. But even that makes him look even more like a dumbass and an amateur. Because he is. All of these signs point to a spiral that they cannot get themselves out of. They're probably just better off not saying anything. But in Hammer's case, he can't help himself.
Time, Tucker, Candace, and other bad faith actors are lying through their teeth about Charlie and Israel. Candace Owens and other grifters, you get that back up for a quick second. Candace Owens and other grifters are trying to posthumously rewrite and hijack the legacy of the great Charlie Kirk to further their patently evil ends. There has been a repulsive op. The reality is simple. Charlie was a bridge. Like, it's weird that he keeps repeating that sentence. Like I said, maniacal, obsessed. And of course, in the comfort of his own derangement and with the full support of the press and the silence of Charlie's other quote unquote friends, Josh was really acting the part of a true Pharisee. He was certain that the truth would not rise again. He was so confident that he had killed it and that he could himself hijack the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Except the truth did kind of rise again. It kind of always does rise again. And the world now knows that Josh Hammer had personal, intimate knowledge that Charlie's views were changing. He lied about the Hamptons meeting. I've told you the truth from day one. Seth Dillon and Josh were personally upset with Charlie's defiance against the state of Israel. Seth Dillon was the more vocal of the two parties in the Hamptons, as I said, in terms of actually pressing Charlie, but both of them were upset about the way that they saw his viewpoints shifting. And Tucker was therefore correct at Charlie Kirk's memorial. It was definitely the correct analogy when he spoke about these sorts of individuals who plot and lie and think that they are going to be successful in, well, murdering the truth in the story of Jesus Christ. Take a listen.
So that's where that concludes. And we know what Tucker Carlson ultimately ended up saying at the funeral, or, celebration of life, whatever you want to call it. But remember, it's Josh Hammer, Seth Dillon, Bill Ackman. Again, they're all connected. It's all connected. There is no sweeping this under the rug. The truth will eventually set us all free. And as I said, I'm not a supporter of Charlie Kirk, but I am a supporter of ending this genocidal relationship with Israel. So it's our job to show that everyone who is involved in this has some way, shape, or form tied directly to the state of Israel, and that's why we're here.